Hello viewers, I'm Denise Backus. I am the proud daughter of James Jackson, and today we are recording some of his childhood memories. We just want to capture them here on video for our family, our immediate family members to come. So I'm going to pan the audience. While I pan the audience, he'll let you know who he is, where he was born, and then we'll have some questions that we like to ask and share. So in our room we have some family members, Corey and Karina. Say hello everybody. And Larry and his wife Georgia. So we're gonna go back around and then I'll ask some questions for Dad. So, and you saw Mary on the side of the camera, but that's okay. All right, so here we go. So Dad, if you just tell us your name and where you were born, what year you were born, and then I'm going to ask you some questions based on a conversation you and I had some time ago.
I'm James Jackson. I was born 1947, Camilla, Georgia. And we stayed in Camilla, Georgia until I was 6 years old. I loved Camilla, Georgia. I learned everything I needed to know about the street was on. When I was a little child growing up, we played. We had fun together. There was some big oak trees that I'll never forget.
Okay, so this oak tree here and this oak tree here, this is where my granddad used to play when he was little. He climbed all up and down it. And it's still here after all this time, you know.
And used to climb the trees, throw baseballs over the trees, but we checked on them same trees and they done got real large now. You won't throw no more baseballs over them. You ain't gonna do no more climbing out on them trees. They too big. And
Well, Dad, when you took us through Camilla today on our tour, and we'll be sharing some of those pictures in the video, you took us, we'll go back to when you were born, you took us by the hospital where you were actually born, and we were able to see where that site is on Beacon Street. Can you tell us anything you remember about the midwife there?
Used to run this place right here as, you know, she was the midwife.
Do you remember her name?
We call her Aunt B. That's all. I don't know what the name was, Beatrix or whatever. I have to do a little history on that. But Aunt B, because Jackie is not here to tell me in Georgia. She died a few years ago.
Okay.
Most of all of my sisters and brothers at that time, they was living in Camilla, John, and all, and Lois,
I told Jackie,
my sister.
I said,
They was born
by him now.
here at this hospital. Well, I don't remember everything about the midwife. We call her Aunt B, and she was a midwife. And Mom told me different things about me being born in the hospital and all of that. Well, the building is still there. And they was planning on moving it to donate it. But for it's standing, the building is still standing. And it looked like it's in pretty good shape right on. And that been 75 years ago. So sometime, you know, old buildings and things, they was built out of the right material. They'll last forever. But some of these now be built, well, they don't last too long because it's made out of different lumber and different people's build it. But I don't know a whole lot to talk about that, but my sister, she also was born in that hospital. And that's about all I got to say about the hospital. I mean, but I do want to say back to, I lived in Camilla. I was born and raised there. I never went to school there because we moved when I was 6 years old.
Well, before you moved, Dad, you took us to a community that you did live in Camilla, and you talked about how you and Grandma would walk to the West End to do shopping and do some things that y'all used to do. So you showed us a community where you and your granddad and your aunt and all of y'all lived in that one community, and you showed us where you used to go in the field to help your granddad, and you showed us a little store in that same community. Can you tell us a little bit about West End, and was that a busy part of town?
Yeah, that was the busiest part of that town at that time. They called it the West End. I remember me and Mama used to walk there sometime, and like peoples need peoples to work and all of that, field work and all. That's what my mom done, and my auntie. That's what they done. A lot of times, Mama would take me with her. I was a little boy, but she would take me with her because she didn't have no one to keep me. And so she would take me along with her to the fields and anywhere else she was doing work. But back to where I was born at, the house, back then the name of it, they call it Green Quarter because everything on that street was painted green. And they had a little outhouse behind every house. And all of them was painted green. And so later on, years later, they changed the color to the brown quarter because everything there was brown. And I remember going to a little store. It was a little neighborhood store like, and the man was named Mr. Anderson. And he was a real nice man to little kids because a lot of time I would go to that store, whether I had money or not. When I leave, he always had something to put in my hand. Well, I would go there and empty the trash, pick up paper, whatever I could do to get me a cookie or a drink, whatever. But all I can say, he was a real nice man because I know some time ago that I didn't have enough money to buy what I wanted. But when I leave, I always would have something in my hand. But this is a little store, and it was several times. Like I said, I would walk from our little house to right here. And it was dirt all in. And it was a different structure of the building. It was a little wood building then. But he had, looked like anything we wanted for the children, he had it. And Mama also would buy stuff there. And, you know, I don't know where she paid for it then or paid for it later, but she would come back with a sack of groceries. And so that's why we call it Anderson's Grocery. And, well, like I say, and then when she met Fonza, then that's when they moved in the country. And that took me away from my hometown, where I was born and raised. And, I mean, I didn't like it, but, you know, by me being a little child, I mean, you know, I had to go with them.
And Danny, you talked about, I know I'm going to let you talk about Mom, but your granddad, where you showed us the field, you said you had really good memories of him because he was really tall. And I remember you sharing a story where he walked in your house one day, and you always called yourself a bad boy, and you told me that you remember he had a lump on his foot and you hit it with a hammer. Will you tell us that story?
Yes. My granddad, he was a real tall man. He was 7'2". And when he come into a door, most especially on the older houses like it was then, he always would have to bend down to come in, because if he didn't, his head would hit the top of the door, facing up top. And he would come in, and by me being then, well, 3-4 years old, I remember that. He had bought me a little hammer, a little hammer set and wrench set and all, and that's what I would play with. And my granddad had a knot on top of his foot. I remember that. And I'd be hitting, and I was trying to hit that knot on his foot one day. And he said, "Boy, don't you hit my foot. If you hit my foot with that hammer, I'll tell you look." And so, you know, back then I didn't know no better. I just figured the knot was there and I just wanted to hit it, you know. But if I had hit it, I know I would have got a good whooping. I know that, but I just wanted to do that. And I also wanted to share this about my granddad. He was a real good man, for as I know, because I was a little boy when he died. Yeah. And so it was plant not far from the house. They call it a creosote plant, which is where they pressure treat light poles and railroad cross ties and any kind of posts. That was the name of it. Back then, people used to call, like your treat light poles, they'll call it pressure treated now, but back then they'll say creosote. And so I don't know the name of it, but I know right now the name of it is pressure treated. You take lumber and stuff and put it under pressure and push that stuff into it, and it sits overnight and all, and that makes your lumber last twice, 3 times longer than it would if you didn't treat it. And so you treat it for termites, worms, and just rot, and it'll last a long time. And my granddad used to take me over there to that plant with him sometime, and I would just stand there and watch. And I learned a lot too from my granddad. I mean, a little while I know him, I learned a lot from him because my mom never used to talk about him. Even though he was dead, he was still, come to my mind every now and then, and he was still working, telling me different things, through my mind. And just because a person's dead, that don't mean he ain't still working and learning you. If you sit there and watch him when he living, you watch what he do, and you can learn from that.
Well, Dad, we're gonna let you put your glasses on so that you don't have to squint. If you're more comfortable with them on. And then one more. I know you for your house in Camilla. You and I were talking, and you said that, and you'll have to share this story. You said that you used to sit outside, and if people would try to come through your yard, that you would almost have to fight them off. Why did you not want anybody coming through your yard?
Well, I was just a bad little boy, and I lived on that street so long. We all did. I just felt like I was the king of the street or whatever. And sometimes we'd been had an argument, me and other little kids and all, and I wouldn't let them by. I have bricks, bottles, all kinds of stuff piled upside the roof. And if they come through there, I start throwing at them. And they would have to call my mom and say, come out here and get Buddy. That's what they call me, Buddy. Say, come out here and get Buddy now. He out here throwing at us. Well, I didn't think I was doing no wrong being a little boy, 6 years old.
Yeah.
But I know better now. But I just want to say that we all growed up later on, and some of us met and talked about the old time and the good time, and we were still friends.
That's good.
And so, back even when we was going to that school, Antioch school, when we started school there, I didn't have no friends. But later on, we all met and talked, played together, fought, wrestled, whatever it took. And up till now, we are still friends. Then what's left?
Well, I know you showed us the school that you attended after you left from Camilla.
The name of this school at the time was called Antioch. That was the name of the school. It was the first school I ever set my feet in at the time, And so all back of that school was playground. And when we get out, we'll all go back there and we would play ball, shoot marbles, wrestle, whatever. We had a good time here. They learned me a lot. My teacher was named Miss Bradley. That was her last name. I don't know the first name.
Was she white or black?
She was a white lady, heavy set lady, real bright skinned. And she would teach you.
She was white.
No, none of that was going on. If you're black, you had a black teacher. We learned a whole lot, and she would teach you if you were learning. If you didn't learn, she would try to beat it in you because she wanted you to learn. My hands stayed red all the time. Because when she tell you something, she's going to explain it. And then if you don't, comprehending it. When she tell you, she gonna take your hand and bend it over, take that paddle, and she gonna work on it. And she didn't mind beating you either. And then if she couldn't get you to learn and understand, you go into the office to the principal. His name was Claude Gurley, was his name. He was a real little old short man, real little and short. But he would teach you, and he would beat you, and he'll sit down, he'll talk to you, and he'll tell you, he'll say, I'm doing this for a reason, boy. He said, one day you're gonna need it. He said, you're growing up to be a man. He's saying, one day you're gonna need it. He's saying, my job here, to put it in your head. He said, if you come here, you're gonna learn, or we don't need you here. That's what he would tell you. And I was a little boy.
Right over there is called Antioch Baptist, so that's probably maybe in the Antioch community.
Well, yeah, that was the name of the school. They called it Antioch. Yeah, and that church still, like I said, they might be tied in together. I don't know, but and this well, I learned a lot of things from.
So this
and
was the elementary school.
There was a little store right over here in them bushes called Miss Acre, not Okra, Acre. That was Mama and them was called it. I wouldn't know the name of it. Then, no, I wasn't but 7 years old. But anyway, and looked like she had about everything you needed in that store.
Yeah,
That kids was wanting anyway.
Yeah, but right before we get to the after you left Camilla and moved to Hopeful, you talked about your Aunt Bert. You talked about her a lot, and I just recently learned about your Uncle Munch. Can you tell us what you remember about your Uncle Munch?
Well, I can tell you what they told me about Uncle Munch. Okay, my dad and Uncle Munch, they was brothers, and they ran together, and they was two bad peoples. That what Mama and them used to say, it was two bad people, my dad and Uncle Munch. And they would go around and they would steal, take from peoples, mistreat people. It didn't matter because they was bad people.
Well, Daddy, that might be why then that maybe God directed your path and you guys moved on to Hopeful, because there is where you told us you found a little church to join.
So this is the church Granddad joined when, you know, he was staying over on this side. Yeah, he became a member over here.
You remember anything about Antioch Church?
Well, I remember the Antioch Church, but now that's not the one I joined.
Oh, okay.
That time, that was the Green Shade.
Oh,
I was
okay.
very, very young. But I do remember Antioch Church, and I've been there a time or two, but later years, I got to be maybe 10 years old, I say. I don't know for sure. But we would get the tractor and wagon and go to revivals, this little church. And so one night, we was having a revival, and the preacher had his hands out, saying, will you come? Will you come? I really didn't know what he was talking about, but I was sitting on the front bench, which they call a Mona bench. And so I was sitting there, and so me, my sister, and some other kids. And so I took the preacher's hand because I didn't know. And so they put me aside for, you know, baptism or whatever. But I wasn't ready for that because I didn't know. And so we went back, and so that night when they got ready to take me in or whatever, I just told the preacher, I said, well, I'm not ready. I didn't know what you was talking about. And so they wanted to baptize me, but I wasn't ready for nothing like that. And when you get ready for something like that, you'll know it and everybody else.
And you showed us the area you lived in, and you said the house for the boss man of that kind of sharecropping area was still there. You talked about how they let you borrow their tractors and you learned to drive. And I asked you, I said, well, Dad, how much did you get paid? You said you got paid $2 a day.
Our boss man's house was this big white house right here, Coop Kemp. And we used to work for him. He was the boss man. looked like the same house was there now was there then. It looked just like it looked now. And I used to cut the yard, drive tractor, ride them around. I was a little boy, but Mr. Coop Kemp would go hunting and fishing, and I'm sitting up in a truck, you know, driving. A little old boy. He had an old ship.
His name was Coop Kemp. I wonder if that's where Cooper came from. But probably not, because y'all were in Camilla and not out here.
He had an old Chevrolet truck, and then he bought a Dodge. Yeah, and when he bought the Dodge, I liked it, that Dodge. It was brand new. And they taught me how to drive, and that's how I learned how to drive tractors, cars, or whatever. They just turned me loose with it. I don't get messed with it. I learned how to drive it. Well, I can tell you about this. I mean, the farm we was living on, this particular farm that you're talking about, we moved on this farm. I mean, I ain't know nothing about driving no tractor, no car, no truck, no nothing. So we got there, and myself, Dad, and Mom and all, we would work, go to the cotton fields, tobacco fields, and just whatever he had there. And my dad might be somewhere else working. Me, Mom, and my sister and other people, they didn't have no way to get back and forth from one field to another. Okay, so he had tractors. We had a Ford, we had a Farmall, and we had a John Deere. And so I learned how to drive the Ford first, and I would take Mom and them from field to field and everything. And so then he bought the John Deere Farmall Super C was the name of it. And I learned how to drive it. One of them with the two wheels in the front close together and two big back wheels. I liked that tractor because it had speed and power. And so I learned how to drive that tractor. I went from that tractor, he bought another tractor, John Deere. I liked it better for the sign it had. And so I started driving that one. And so I learned from that. Then he went to something like a dojo where Dad and them was cleaning up ground. And so I was a very young boy, but I always wanted to learn everything that I could learn. So I'm going to even get on it and start playing with it, you know, and playing with it. And so finally I learned how to drive it enough to do what I wanted to do. I'm not saying pushing on trees, cleaning land, but I learned how to kind of drive it enough to get by. Okay, so later on, there was another man down there, I forgot his name, but he was a farmer also. And this during tobacco season. We went to work for him, and he promised me $2 a day to drive his tractor because we was hauling tobacco from the field to the barn. And he probably had other people that could do it, but he would have had to pull some of the main peoples out of the field to do it. And so he just hired me to do it because just driving a tractor just up and down the road hauling tobacco. And $2 a day back then to me was very good. Yeah, very good. And I kept money in my pocket. I was a young boy, but
I think it was because you said Grandma's snuff was about 15 cents.
That's right.
So $2 was probably a decent wage. So I was just wondering about that part. And you talked about some of the recreation you all used to fish and things like that. So I'm sure that was things y'all did on the weekend.
Yes. We would go fishing. We had to walk about 2 miles to go fishing. Sometimes me and my stepdad would go, and sometimes me, my mom, and my sister, we would go. And sometimes my mom, she dipped it snuff, railroad. And me being a little young boy, I mean, that was just a skip and a hop for me. We'll walk 5 miles sometimes just to get one box of railroad snuff for her. And that would satisfy her because that's what she wanted. And also, if I got a little money in my pocket, I wanted some, If I had to walk 5 miles, I'd go get it. It wasn't that much skip and hop. And I would take on car tire, me and my brother sometime, and we'll roll them on car tires. You know, that's what we're doing, just roll the tire there and back. I mean, you know, it's just like carrying the tire, but it might go in the ditch, we'll get it out and keep on rolling. And sometimes we'll come back with an arm of, you know, groceries or whatever and still trying to roll old tire. Why we did it, I don't know, but it was fun to us. It was fun to us, but I mean, I wouldn't do it now, I wouldn't even think about it. I wouldn't be able to do it now.
Well, Dad, then thank you for sharing. Is there anything else that you want to say that maybe I didn't recall, or something that's on your mind that you want to share? If somebody is watching this video 10 years from now, right now is currently September 4th, 2022. So if somebody's watching this video, say a great-great-grandchild, is there anything you would want to tell
Well,
them?
I just want to say one thing. We learned, let's drink a little water. We learned back then, had some good peoples out there, all different races of peoples, because we was always treated nice and treated with respect. But we also treated them nice and respected them too. And if you do that out of life, everything will be all right. Mm-hmm.